Hey, I'm Nancy Cavey, National ERISA and Individual Disability Attorney. Welcome to this week's episode of Winning Isn't Easy. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about multiple sclerosis. But before I get started, I have to give you a legal disclaimer. Podcast is not legal advice. The Florida bar says I have to say it, and now I've said it. But nothing will prevent me from giving you easy to understand information about the disability insurance claims process, the games that disability carriers play, and what you need to know to get the disability benefits you deserve. So off we go. As I said, we're going to be talking about the multiple sclerosis, the disease, how it interacts as the disease progresses, and how you can get the disability benefits you deserve. Now, specifically, I'm going to be talking about predicting long-term disability in MS with the use of an MRI biomarkers and the two implications of those biomarkers on your ERISA disability claim. Next, I'm going to be talking about what your disability carrier doesn't understand about the stages of multiple sclerosis. And lastly, the importance of documenting your use of disease-modifying therapies in your MS ERISA disability claim. Time for a break before we get started with these great topics.
Have you been robbed of your peace of mind from your disability insurance carrier? You owe it to yourself to get a copy of Robbed of Your Peace of Mind, which provides you with everything you need to know about the long-term disability claim process. Request your free copy of the book at kvlaw.com today.
Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. Let's first talk about predicting long-term disability in MS with the use of an MRI biomarkers and the two implications of the biomarkers on your ERISA disability claim. Now, you may have purchased a disability insurance policy or plan thinking that you'd never have to use it, but you've been diagnosed with MS. And let's talk about the use of MRIs as a diagnostic tool. The MRI is a common study that is used in the workup of MS. It images the brain and the spinal cord that can show damage to the myelin, which is known as white matter. These white matter lesions in an MRI in certain parts of the brain can be consistent with and confirm the MS diagnosis. But it also can document the location of the lesion, which is predictive of disability. There is a recent study that I want to talk about called Predictors of Long-Term Disability in Multiple Sclerosis Patients using routine magnetic resonance data. It's a 15-year retrospective study that was published in the Neuroradiology Journal. It confirms that there are two MRI biomarkers that are linked to the worsening of your disability. They are ICD, intercaudate diameter, and TVW, third ventricular width. Now, the measurements can predict the course of the disease and your response to treatment. These early MRI biomarkers were linked to worsening disability over a 10-year period of time. The two implications of these biomarkers and your ERISA disability claim, I think, are something that we need to discuss in greater detail. I think that there are two implications in an ERISA disability insurance claim. Now, many disability policies or plans have a pre-existing condition clause that indicate that if a person files a claim for disability benefits within a certain period of time becoming covered or enrolled in the disability claim, coverage rather, that the diagnosis potentially of a disabling medical condition can be denied if the person got evaluation or treatment or should have gotten evaluation and treatment in what's called the look-back period. This can be problematic if you are changing jobs and you began to get treatment during the look-back period. Ultimately, the new carrier can say, look, we're not going to pay these benefits because you actually got treatment or should have gotten treatment or evaluation, including an MRI, during the look-back period. So if you are thinking about changing disability employers, which will result in a change in your disability carrier, you want to consider whether or not, as you make that change and be insured in a new disability policy or plan, that coverage is going to be denied under the new policy or plan's pre-existing condition clause. So if you had an MRI and the study didn't necessarily show lesions, the new disability carrier for your new employer may say, look, you had the MRI, it didn't really show anything, but under the terms of our disability policy or plan, if you got evaluation or treatment and then subsequently you become disabled by this condition, too bad, so sad. So they'll say, look, you got this MRI. Nobody thought you'd had MS until it was diagnosed after you got our new policy. But the fact that you had that diagnostic study is enough for us to deny the claim. Now, the other thing that we need to potentially discuss as a second consideration is the idea that a person is working while they're disabled. As your progress of the MS is documented by the MRI and your medical records, and you have an opportunity to pick the date you're going to become disabled, that can be important. Normally what I'm doing is I'm looking at the medical records of a client and say, look, your disease is progressing, you're having trouble at work, you're having difficulty doing your own occupation. This is the day that you need to pick to be disabled, but we need to clean up your medical records because if you look at it, there's no reason why you were able to work today and not work tomorrow. So we've got to get your medical records cleaned up to show a nice progression as you're leaving work. If you, on the other hand, think you're going to get fired or there's been a layoff coming or a RIF that's being announced, you might have some time to clean up these medical records. But if you get inkling that you're going to get fired next week, you need to get yourself to the doctor now. You know, it doesn't, and I mean like a walk-in clinic or an emergency room or something that will allow you to get a note that says you should stop working. You shouldn't be working. So you've got documentation that you were disabled before you get terminated. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you may be working full time, even though you're really symptomatic, you're having trouble, but you're a trooper. You're not going to let the team down, but the team lets you down and fires you. And then you apply for your disability benefits. The carrier is going to say, look, you may have been working while you were disabled, but you didn't have the requisite loss in hours or loss of pay. So too bad, so sad. That's why I like to work with my clients who have progressive medical conditions to try to pick a date sometime in the future as the date that we're going to file a claim to be disabled so that we can document the necessary elements to establish that in fact you were disabled. So you might have difficulty with your vision as a result of MS. You might have problems with fatigue. You might have problems with concentration. You might have motor issues. So we want to be able to document the impact of those on your ability to work and the progression of the disease. So you may have to cut down the number of tasks that you're doing. You may have to cut down the hours that you are doing. You may have to, ultimately give notice and say, I'm going to have to stop working as of this date because my doctor says that I'm unable to work. So you can see that there's got to be some proof that has to be developed. And we don't want the lack of proof to result in a claims denial because you were working while disabled and then you got fired and don't meet the necessary proof requirements. Now, as the MRI document progression, I think it's really important that you are consulting with an experienced MS ERISA disability attorney who can review your disability insurance policy, look at your medical records, and look at your pay stubs to determine when you should be filing a claim and basically creating a strategy to preserve and protect your ERISA disability rights. And additionally, as I've said, you don't want to be changing jobs in this particular scenario, because if you do change jobs, you think you're going to get fired. And so the way to protect yourself is to go find a new job. You've got to deal with the pre-existing condition limitations in that new policy. And they are so broadly written, again, that if you've gotten treatment evaluation and treatment, most likely your claim is subsequently going to be denied under the pre-existing condition clause. Sometimes these look-back periods will say you shouldn't or couldn't have gotten treatment or evaluation or diagnostic studies for at least a year prior to the onset of your disability. So you have to go a year without getting evaluations or treatment, which is absolutely crazy given this progressive nature of the disease. So you might think that you're going to save yourself by finding a new job. You've just created a bigger problem. The wiser solution is to be planning, if you can, as a gradual exit from your current employment, saying, I'm picking this date as I'm going to be disabled, and then you can do whatever you want to do with me after the fact I've filed my claim. Or if you think you're going to get fired tomorrow, you better get yourself to the emergency room or a walk-in clinic and get a doctor to take you out of work so that you can say you are disabled prior to you getting terminated. Got it? Let's take a break.